Eric Handley, welcome to the stage, young man. So, curious start to...
I think compared to the previous ones, I don't think you can exactly call me young man.
Yeah, well, it's great to have a better sounding microphone for sure. Kicking off with space at a conference around disruption, digital disruption. What's space got to do with disruption? What's going into outer space got to do with tackling some of these bigger issues that we face?
I think the previous kids really set me up pretty well because, you know, they're thinking at such a large scale and also even specifically mentioned space. I think space to me is several things. One, it gives you a lot of context. I think when you see a clip like that, at least for me, I can't help not want to know what what's beyond the boundaries of what our current knowledge is about the universe. It gives you context of what some of the things that we forget are, that we are just a tiny little planet, and we really need to deal with our challenges on Earth together as a race. It also reminds me of what real, true, bold, aspirational, world-changing innovation is. You know, we talked about Silicon Valley earlier, which one of the heroes of Silicon Valley in terms of investing is Peter Thiel. And he set up the Founders Fund with Sean Parker from Facebook and Spotify. And on their website, it said something like, you know, we wanted flying cars, and all we got was 140 characters. And that's really what I think space is about. It's about resetting the boundaries and the benchmarks of what is truly world-changing innovation. And what you learn from that, and what you learned from the NASA program, what you learned from Kennedy's ambition to go to space through science, technology, and just the sheer will of human vision is, I think, important to inspire all endeavors, you know, in humanity.
And you're an astronaut-in-waiting.
Yes.
Tell us about that. How are you feeling?
When I see that, I get scared. You know, it's 5,000 kilometers an hour. It's 5 Gs. It's 400,000 feet. I'm not a adrenaline. I haven't even bungee jumped. I haven't even jumped out of the sky, you know, of a skydiving plane. So, but equally, I know that it's an incredibly privileged position to be able to consider it. And only 500 people in the history of the human race have been to space. So to be a part of that first 1,000 is, I mean, you know, if it was only the money I had, I would still have that seat. Yeah.
Alrighty, and I mean, you could be anywhere in the world right now, right? I guess there's a dangerous assumption here that everybody in the audience knows a little bit about this guy and his background. He's had some great success. Why have you decided to come back to New Zealand for this?
Well, I mean, I'm still continually attached to New Zealand. You know, I'm an adjunct professor at this university. I invest in companies. I would like to invest in the 2 companies that were spoken of earlier, the kids, wherever they are. I am passionate about, as much as they are, about technology and the sector of New Zealand's entrepreneurs, innovation, and creating a new vision of our economy in our country. And I'm also passionate about social change, and, you know, the same things you are extremely passionate about. So I want to never be one of those expat New Zealanders who go away for too long a period not really having a finger on the pulse here. So ever since I left to set up the Hyperfactory in Hong Kong, I don't think I've been away from New Zealand for more than maybe 4 or 5 months, and that was 10 years ago or 9 years ago.
Wow. And curiously, you're involved in a global movement, so I've been working a bit with Sir Richard Branson, amongst others, in setting up the B team. And, you know, there's a movement, for people who don't know, I'm sure you'll tell us a little bit more, around putting people and planet before profit. And we're now a little bit over a year in. You've stepped down as founding CE. Tell us a little bit about why you wanted to do that and how it's been playing out so far.
Well, it's not putting people and planet before profit. It's kind of integrating them as one, because if you put you know, people planet before profit, you run out of money to try and solve the problems. But if you put profit before planet, then you run out of planet. And that's kind of the way we're heading at the moment. As an entrepreneur, building the companies I was building, at some point I thought that actually the most powerful use of entrepreneurship is to solve social problems. And that one of the most important responsibilities of business and entrepreneurship is to reverse the environmental challenges we've got. So the B team is all about that. It's about resetting what purpose of business is, and it's about creating global leadership with people like Richard. And at the moment we have 16 people in that team from all around the world who believe that business has gone too far to a particular skew towards profit, and that if you look 10 or 20, 30 years ahead, it's going to have really serious problems for humanity. So they're just trying to push this movement along with inspiration, examples, models, leadership, and recruiting and rallying more people like them. And you are seeing more and more people like that pop up from unexpected places. The most recent one, which is the one I've been really wanting to happen, is Tim Cook from Apple, who recently was very aggressive with shareholders who told him to stop investing in anything to do with climate or environment. And that the boldest thing a CEO can do as a public company is tell the shareholders to sell their shares if they don't like our vision. And he was saying to hedge funds to sell your shares if you don't believe that these things are right for our company, because we believe they're right for not only this company but for the world. And that's the kind of new leadership that we need.
Indeed. I mean, it's an incredibly bold vision, and clearly some really influential people who are being woven into it as well. Can you give us a couple of other examples, of businesses that you see, which are doing well, which are
I think there's two ends of the spectrum. One is big companies that need to rethink how they have an impact on the world. So one of our B team leaders, my favorite, big corporate example, runs Unilever, which is one of the largest packaged goods companies in the world. Everything from deodorant to soap to household goods. And he's rewritten his whole corporate strategy in such a way that it has huge social goals attached to it and huge environmental goals at the same time as doubling his company. So he wants to go from 50 billion in revenue to 100, but at the same time is going from 10% sustainably sourced raw materials to 100%, halving his environmental footprint, positively impacting the hygiene of 1 billion people. These are all part of his business plan. So they're all core to his mission, and he turns all his products and his brands and their strategies to achieve those things as well as sales and profit. So he's probably the leading light in terms of integrating it into a big company. And then you have startups that are built from the beginning to do something good for the world. So we have on our team also Blake Mycoskie, who founded Tom's Shoes, which some of you may know, some of you may not, but it's a very, very successful shoe company. And he built it from the ground up saying, there are so many people in the world that don't have any shoes. For every shoe that I sell, I will create the infrastructure to ensure that a kid in the developing world has shoes. And they build the whole model so that the business model is actually achieving social and profitable goals at the same time in parallel. So my fascination now is with all the different new models that will come out that achieve parallel goals. And I know you're equally passionate about those kind of things, because I think that charity can't solve all the issues we've got. The way businesses currently is, it's going to just make them worse. So we need to create hybrid paths.
Yes, and I mean, obviously, here in New Zealand, we have a particular opportunity to step up and help support and nurture and develop business to be a force for change in this space. And I guess one thing I'm curious about is that if people were looking to you for leadership in this space, what's 3 things that you'd do?
3.
Or 1 or 2. Or 10.
You need to work, I think, with everything. If you want to create real change, you need to look at the system and all the different forces on it. You need to look at what exists today and what is going to be new tomorrow. So I think, first of all, system change happens when the zeitgeist changes, when people believe something differently. So Apple is the last example that resonates around the world of, I would say, system change in business in the way that they made design important. Before Apple was there, design was considered like a marketing exercise or a nice to have, and now it's a whole way of building a company. And they made design a strategy and a competitive edge. So to start to build the narrative that you need to incorporate social and environmental strategies into your business plan as a way to be sustainable and as a way to compete is part of it. The second part is to encourage people as they seek to have careers to look for those careers or push on their bosses or their companies to say, well, that's all very well, we're doing this, but what are we doing about the problems that are around our particular industry? So, for example, if you work in a bank, a high street bank, there's a lot of problems that finance companies create in our cities, like, for example, in South Auckland, trying to get people to buy things they don't need and then charge them 20 to 30% interest on those things. To me, a bank like BNZ should be solving those problems because it's in their domain. They should be creating products that solve those things. So I think part of it is about getting young people to ask questions, young and old, to ask of their companies, how are we using our assets to create change? The third thing that is nurturing the types of things you've been talking about just in the previous session, nurturing new forms and new companies. So now as an entrepreneur, and the guys earlier were talking about how hard it is, I can tell you it's fucking hard. It is always going to be hard. And if you do it and you fail and all you were trying to do was to create something cool or innovative and make money, it feels very, very empty. It's not worth it. So now the only thing I want people to build in terms of companies are companies that create social change at the same time as innovation, or companies that try to solve environmental problems. Because it is so hard, you might as well tackle things that are meaningful. And I think that goes back to the Founders Fun issue of 140 characters versus flying cars. 140 characters are meaningful, but I think they're making a jibe at the immense amount of rubbish that's coming out of Silicon Valley at the moment that isn't adding value to our lives. It's detracting from our lives. It's wasting our consciousness, our presence. It's taking away from our human, relationships. And there needs to be a movement in Silicon Valley, as there does need to be a movement here, to encourage entrepreneurs to create companies that will actually matter, that will solve social problems or address environmental issues. And so then you start addressing then you start addressing it from all, the culture, the zeitgeist, what you celebrate, the big companies changing strategies, and the small companies coming up.
Great answer. I think. Okay, so we've got 5 minutes left.
Okay.
I'm looking around the audience and I'm seeing there are a number of young faces in the audience, and I think everyone in the audience is young at heart and was young once, absolutely. And I'm curious. I'm curious. I think if we're talking about this vision to build the infrastructure that enables and supports young New Zealanders to be the change that they want to see in the world, what advice would you have to give them?
I think that traditional careers and the way they've been set up and taught to be embraced needs to change. What people value as success needs to incorporate all these things at the same time. What your impact on society is, what you can do with everything that you've got to solve issues that you care about that are meaningful, at the same time as you building a professional career. And so if I was a young person, I would be looking for those opportunities that give you the chance to do that, or else creating them, yourself. But really building into your life a lot more awareness of things beyond your what you would traditionally call your career. The last century has been about building wealth, having a career, and then at the end of it, doing some kind of repent or philanthropy or giving back to the community. Particularly with really wealthy people, they make all this money and they get old and they create a foundation and they give it all away. And you can see that in New Zealand. It's pretty clear in some cases. You can see that there has been an emptiness somehow at the end, and now they're giving money out like crazy because they think it's going to fill a void. Obviously, that's not the way it should be done. You should be trying to do these things as you grow. So, that's why I've launched this campaign, the Shoulder Tap, which is about creating these careers. And it's also, I've created a job that is one of those careers. But it's obviously a job ad, but it's actually a kickstart to try and get people to think about a movement, to look for more in their work and look for more in their businesses and their jobs. So how can you have a hybrid role where you're achieving commercial goals, you're achieving a traditional career, but you're actually tasked with social or environmental impact at the same time?
And disclaimer, we are about to watch a little bit of a short clip in a second, but just before we do, I'd like to learn a little bit more about what you think this role would entail for the successful candidate.
The actual job that I've created?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's basically taking care of or driving the activity that I have in New Zealand, which is a broad portfolio. It's investing in new companies, which I think I will create a lens that that they must have some kind of a social impact and some kind of a purpose beyond innovation. It's helping me incubate new ideas to build new companies. It's possibly helping to raise capital for funds that back these kind of things. So it's really your entrepreneurial type venture type activity. But at the same time, I've established a charitable foundation that will develop a strategy to grow leaders who want to lead this way, and also attack particular social issues in creative, entrepreneurial, social ways. And this person will be tasked with doing both of those things at the same time. So there'll be finance/innovation and entrepreneurship, but they'll also be tasked with developing strategy and change, and the two things will be totally integrated. So all the activity in the portfolio of business in some way has to fuel and fund the efforts to do the social issues, or in some way actually has to solve the social issues. So a truly hybrid role that, at least for my knowledge, I don't think exists in New Zealand, and I've never met anyone in the world who's tasked with both running an accelerator for ventures and new ideas and a sidecar impact foundation.
So I guess that's clearly an incredible opportunity, and for a lot of young New Zealanders who might look to this thing to help to validate that, hey, actually thinking about a future where I can have an impact on the world across different spheres is a really appealing and purposeful thing. We've got 2 minutes left, and I think without further ado we might play the vid.
There is an exciting new wave of people out there who are challenging the status quo.
There are increasing numbers of people that want to attach themselves to something purposeful, to businesses that unite profit and purpose.
We need to move beyond thinking about a career and doing good as separate entities. You need to bring them together.
A successful life is not measured by how much money you make, but the impact that you make on this planet and its people.
We have to get people out of the mindset of traditional careers.
To do this, we need roles designed to allow people to grow their careers while making a bigger community impact.
These will be the jobs of our future.
The future will evolve out of the destruction of all professional boundaries.
We need people who can bring in new skills, who can actually champion new causes, and we need to make sure that we're not replicating what we currently have today.
We need to recalibrate people's minds about what it means to be successful.
Starting with one very special job and an amazing opportunity for one very special person.
Derek Handley has designed a 2IC sort of chief of everything role that breaks all the rules. He's looking for a financial and operational genius, but with an entrepreneurial MO, who wants to join his crusade to change a bunch of things in New Zealand that matter.
There are not many opportunities like this to get alongside somebody who is passionate, driven and purposeful.
So I encourage you to actually start living in the now and saying, I'm here now on Earth and I'm alive and I want to do something. I'm going to actually find something disruptive to do that will make me feel better about myself and the world certainly better.
Does this sound like you or someone you know?
Shoulder tap someone you think fits this role, or better still, shoulder tap yourself.
In doing so, you'll help accelerate our emerging leaders to actually make a difference both here in New Zealand and around the world.
All right, hey, so we've got 15 seconds left, and I think
you can go to the website and see it for yourself.
Yeah.
Theshouldertap.com.
Theshouldertap.com.
And if you know anyone, you can shoulder tap them. That's the idea.
And just to finish up, I think one of the most incredible things that we do need to build in this country is access to visible, positive role models who are out there championing this stuff, who are leading this change. And Derek probably doesn't know this, but I have looked to this guy as, he's a Kiwi, he's doing some pretty cool stuff, and the ripple effect that would have on me and my generation and my peer group is profound. So I just really want to acknowledge this guy for his leadership in this space, which is so important at this time. And I'd invite everyone in the audience to please join me in just thanking Derek for his commitment to New Zealand and for being here.
Thank you.